Morning, everyone. So we'll just get started. People will be jumping in, I'm sure, at the last minute. I'll turn the camera off once I've done a bit of the introduction because it tends to interfere with the presentation. But good morning and thank you so much to Causeway for collaborating with us to reach out to everybody on our lovely topic of managing long COVID today. For those that are not members of Causeway or don't know about Causeway, they are looking at connecting and collaborating with Scotland and Northern Ireland and Ireland in terms of businesses and getting together. So delighted to be here this morning. The session is being recorded, which is great, and that will be available. And any slides that you require, by all means, you don't have to sit and take lots of notes. There'll be an email address at the end if you want to get in touch with us to get the slides. Today, managing long COVID, where are we in the tour? So we've helped business owners navigate through furlough, then looking at a safe return to work and vaccinations in the workplace. And our next stop along the way is on the lovely topic of managing long COVID. This will be from the perspective of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Ireland, with some differences that we will point out. And what I would say is today's advice is purely just today's advice. Things will move and will change. So at the particular time, if you do have a query, then please just get in touch. You'll see a question and answer on your toolbar if you want to pop in any questions throughout the presentation. We'll get to those at the end. If we don't have time to cover all of the questions, then certainly there'll be some information to contact us to speak directly and get you an answer. Who are Beyond HR and what do? We look at and assist startups, SMEs and larger organisations and provide ongoing HR support, which could include on-site support or Zoom support at the moment, as we're doing with all of the HR journey, from documentation, contracts, handbooks, to on-site meetings or chairing meetings, training your line managers, supervisors, your directors, your board of directors, or whoever that may be, on all HR issues. And as I said today, it's the perspective of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Ireland, and the session will be recorded. So I'll just pop the camera off now, but it was nice to see you all and I hope you enjoy the session today. So what will we be covering? What is long COVID and what are the symptoms that employees may face? What should employers do to support employees experiencing long COVID? Is long COVID a disability? How are tribunals likely to approach these cases? And what happens if you don't make any reasonable adjustments? And as I said, any questions, we won't get to the questions throughout the presentation. We'll get to the questions at the end, so just pop those in the question and answer session. So just in terms of a definition, what is it? So post-COVID condition occurs in individuals with a history of probable or confirmed SARS-CoV-2 infection, usually 3 months from the onset of COVID, with symptoms and that last for at least 2 months and cannot be explained by an alternative diagnosis. So this is the World Health Organization definition. When we talk about probable relates back to where testing wasn't so fast coming at the time, it wasn't happening. So probable maybe because there was no positive confirmed test, but there will be many people that have had COVID and simply don't know it because testing wasn't such a big thing at the time. Possible long COVID symptoms. So there are distinguishing symptoms between normal COVID and long COVID. Fatigue, headache, feeling unwell, just generally feeling yuck, breathlessness, cognitive symptoms like brain fog, confusion, memory loss. I've heard quite a lot of this, and I'm sure you have with people that you know maybe having that brain fog, persistent cough, gastric problems, palpitations, neurological symptoms like ringing in the ears or maybe loss of feeling in hands or feet. Now, the SAGE independent report on COVID, on long COVID, is quite good in terms of statistics. The general population will experience mild symptoms of COVID. 5 to 10% of people who get COVID will develop long COVID, and 20% of people will still have symptoms 5 weeks after their infection. According to the WHO, just some other stats, they say that 1 in every 10 patients infected with COVID incurs long COVID effects, so 10% they're saying. However, there are some estimates that do put the occurrence of long COVID anything up to 30% of cases, so we watch and anticipate. But just some stats that are out there as well from the Office of National Statistics, Northern Ireland, the last statistic was July, but around 21,000 cases of long COVID. Across the UK for October 2020 is an estimated 1.2 million across the UK. And for the Republic of Ireland, which was a bit more difficult to find some statistics on, there's an estimated 10,000 to 20,000 from the Irish Times from October 2021 as well. So it's fair to say that there may be some occasions or employees within your business that will experience long COVID symptoms, and what do we do and how do we get around it? Now, possible adjustments that you need to think about. So we deal as HR professionals with occupational health at times. They are the experts. They can help and assist you in terms of adjustments and support. But some of the items that they're recommending so far would be a phased return to work programme. So that will differ for every employee and every occasion. And it may be that people come back 2 or 3 days a week, etc. But they can work with you to look at that phased return to work. Alterations to start and finish times. Maybe some employees have particularly bad symptoms in the morning, therefore they might request to have an altered later start in the day. Altered hours in its entirety, shorter days or days off in between work days where they may feel quite poorly, can't carry on and maybe need a day off in between. Alteration to workload, maybe assigning fewer tasks than normal, maybe different tasks also, but it would just maybe allow a proper return to work or a return to work rather than being off sick. So definitely having a look at alteration to workloads. More time to complete tasks, they might be slower on their feet, breathless, need for more regular breaks. Temporary changes to tasks, so just for a short time having different tasks, reviewing those, and then maybe pushing more tasks to deal and cope with the workload, and seek professional advice in terms of what these adjustments might look for that individual. It will be different for individuals, different roles, different parts of the business, so we would urge that you seek that advice in terms of what that might look like. Some possible support as well, time off for appointments. They may have some items in place in order to support their long COVID symptoms, hospital appointments, clinic appointments, whatever that looks like. No lone working, it may not be advisable to have these individuals working alone for a period of time, so it's absolutely something else to consider. And clear objectives and regular communication. So making sure that you're having regular conversations. Symptoms can maybe change over time. The person might feel different over time, and constantly reviewing this. Options may also include working from home or using a hybrid working model where possible for the roles that are suitable, and equipment adjustments. But there's nothing better than asking what the employee thinks as well. They're experiencing the symptoms. So what could they talk about in terms of any possible support and possible adjustments that you can look at with them? With that, you've got your own thoughts, you've got what the employee's asking for, and what have the experts recommended that can look at a workplace setting and also the medical condition to come up with some support and suggestions for you guys, because we're not GPs, we're not medical experts. This will progress, so we need some help sometimes to point us in the right direction of what that may look like. And the long-awaited question in terms of, is long COVID a disability? So in the UK and Northern Ireland, a disability is a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on a person's ability to do normal day-to-day activities. So there are some words that stand out there for a substantial and long term. Well, what does that mean? Through case law and through the tribunals, that is looking like it is or is likely to last more than 12 months. And a person's ability to do normal day-to-day activities, what does that look like? Is it walking? Is it making the bed? Is it being able to get dressed in the morning, etc.? So that would be our aim for the UK and Northern Ireland, our definition of what a disability is, and we'll go on to talk about that more. Now, the definition in Ireland is much wider than would be in the UK particular. There's no requirement for the condition to have a substantial and long-term adverse effect, as you can see from the below. There has been short-term conditions and treatments following, for example, a kidney infection that have been determined to be a disability in Ireland. So it's much, much wider. And you'll see, I'm not going to read out all the definition, but you will see there that it's far more extensive and wider. And it's quite important in terms of the last point, and shall be taken to include a disability which exists at present or which previously existed but no longer exists, or which may exist in the future, or which is imputed to a person. So that point for me is quite pertinent in terms of the definition. Now, what with each person experiencing different symptoms, different severity. You've maybe got employees that just feel yucky throughout the day, or people that are having employees that are having severe brain fog, or employees that are that bad that they may not be able to get out of bed in the morning. The duration of symptoms will be different for long COVID, and it's really hard to say at the moment whether it will always amount to a disability. And things are moving and changing. Trade unions have called it to be recognised as a deemed disability to overcome this. So basically we would bypass any of the statutory definitions that we've just seen, and it would almost be an automatic disability. Other conditions that follow this may be cancer, HIV, multiple sclerosis, those are all deemed disabilities already. So they want to throw long COVID into the mix. Whether that will go through or not, only time will tell. However, if it is, it will lead to arguments because the boundary between normal COVID and long COVID will be much greater. Our advice would certainly be, due to all of the uncertainty and not a lot known yet about the condition and whether it will be a disability, and in each person's circumstances, will it be a disability, it would be a lower risk for you as an employer to act on the basis that employees with it have a disability while more information is pending. So what that means is focusing on all the reasonable adjustments that you can make in the workplace. So all the adjustments, all the support that we've talked about, focus on that rather than focusing whether is it a disability, is it not a disability. And what you do have to think about is there are obviously some employees with long COVID, but they may also have pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, and that therefore the combined effect then does create a disability. So even if the individual's post their long COVID condition is found not to be a disability itself, the combined effect with their pre-existing asthma, for example, may result in an overall substantial and long-term effect that does meet the requirements of that definition of a disability. And even if it's not Just be careful, policies don't discriminate with those with the condition or indirectly discriminate. That may be, for example, have a everybody needs to return to the workplace policy, where long COVID sufferers may need that time at home, etc. So just be mindful and very careful in terms of if you are introducing new policies, you maybe get a bit of advice on whether that would indirectly discriminate. Long COVID has so far to be found to affect older people more, ethnic minorities and women more severely than men. So it's something else to bear in mind. What happens if you don't make reasonable adjustments or reasonable accommodations, as it's known in the Republic of Ireland? Well, if employers fall foul of this, they're likely to face grievances and ultimately tribunal claims. We have seen case law from COVID through already, which is great to pace the way for the moving forward, etc. But obviously with all of those, there is media attention. So absolutely, it's not really something that you would want to be in the media for in terms of any claims. Discrimination claims in GB and NI would be uncapped in terms of compensation, and 2 years in Ireland. Injury to feelings awards can range from 900 to 45,600. So those, in terms of that compensation, that could be fairly scary to business in terms of what the risk would be. So absolutely seek advice at every step of the way. So it could be uncapped for you, or in Ireland, it could be capped at 2 years, but then many more claims may go through in Ireland. There may also be negative employee relations and public relations impacts. So forget about the money. Obviously, it's bad in terms of the compensation on its own, but everything else that we talked about, so the negative ER and the negative public relation impact that you might see as well. So it wouldn't be wise to just throw in. I would strongly advise to get advice along the way. And how are tribunals likely to look at these cases as they move forward? So there's no decided cases, there's no case law at the moment, there's no definition or way forward. Does long COVID amount to disability? Does it not? Within the meaning of the Equality Act or the disability legislation in the Republic of Ireland. So that's as yet. I'm sure as time goes on, in terms of the time frame that we're at, there are many people that may be reaching that 12 months or more, or likely to. However, the effects are apparently similar to those of post-viral fatigue, ME and chronic fatigue syndrome. So it's maybe advisable to look at some previous case law for guidance. And the case that we would point you to would be Chief Constable of Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary versus Adams 2009. So this employee was a probationer police constable, and he suffered from chronic fatigue and ME. His duties as a police officer included night shifts, but he was really struggling to complete. His condition was really bad, quite extreme, and between the hours of 2 and 4 in the morning. That was his kind of worst time. And during these times, he maybe walked a bit slower at pace, he needed assistance or a handrail to climb stairs. He had to be driven home at times because of difficulty in driving, and he needed help maybe when he got home with undressing. So quite substantial if we look back at the definition, quite substantial in terms of the issues that he was facing, normal day-to-day activities, getting dressed, walking, going up a handrail, etc., using a handrail, walking upstairs, climbing stairs, driving, all of the things that are maybe classed as day-to-day normal activities. Now, the person, they were dismissed in February and claimed disability out of termination of employment on account of his ability to fulfil his contractual duties. So therefore, it was then down to the judge to determine actually whether this was a disability. We've talked over the definition, and really the judge needs to be able to look at the likelihood of the condition lasting longer than 12 months. It's complicated, obviously, as it's looking at the time of the alleged discrimination rather than would it in fact or did it in fact last 12 months or longer. So it can be quite difficult to distinguish. But the decision was that the test had been met, long-term effect on normal day-to-day activities. And the claimant did have a relevant disability, so they did win their case. Now, the police force was looking at the normal day-to-day activities, and there was a lot of chat and a lot of conversation over the night shift part, in terms of, well, night shift, was that common? Was that a normal day-to-day activity, apart from the fact he was doing kind of normal duties within that time? But there was a lot of chat from the police force in terms of that normal day-to-day activity, and they were arguing almost that night shift wasn't a normal day-to-day activity, but it was found that climbing stairs, driving, undressing, they had absolutely no hesitation that part and that test for the relevant disability was satisfied as well. So it's maybe a case to think about as time progresses, but I'm sure there will be at some point some case law that can help guide the way. An ACAS view on long COVID, so it was fairly difficult to find any other view in terms of the regulatory bodies from either perspective of the LRA or any of the bodies in the Republic of Ireland. But ACAS does have a view on long COVID, and it's probably similar, but just slightly different. And they recommend that employers focus on obtaining as much information as possible from the employee and health professionals, and considering any reasonable adjustments or reasonable accommodations that may be required. So they really suggest that let this be the priority. Forget about trying to determine whether in each case the person with long COVID is disabled under the Act. Let's just make sure we're looking at reasonable adjustments and the support and all the stuff that you have to do, rather than focusing on, do they have a disability, do they not, within the legal definition. So quite an interesting perspective, but very similar. So we've covered what the definition is, we've covered what the symptoms would be, we've covered where everyone's coming from in terms of what they feel will be the way forward. But what should you be doing as an employer? Engaging with employees, so finding out, as we talked about before, what adjustments, what support do they need, what accommodations, and finding out and considering these and trying to put measures in place. Proactively managing absence. For many of these employees, they may be on long-term sickness. So have you started following a process? Have you sought advice as to what has to happen? Are you supporting them along the way? Looking at trying to engage for any kind of return to work, or indeed phased return to work. Educating line managers. In many circumstances, these will be the people that have the conversations with the employees. Are they aware of what they need to think about, how to support them, how to have these conversations, how to work through someone suffering from long COVID? And taking advice at every step of the way. We've chatted over everyone experiencing different symptoms, the length of the time that may be different as well for these symptoms. So just making sure that you're taking advice at every step of the way. There will be twists, there'll be turns. There isn't a prototype for dealing with this, and we need to look at each case on its own merits and be mindful of those uncapped or that capped claim at 2 years. In terms of compensation, if you don't deal with it the right way, you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, that may be the compensation that you would be up against, with all of the other stuff that we talked about as well. So a quick whistle-stop tour round of long COVID. Happy to take a couple of questions that we might have that you may have posted in the question and answer. But if you do have any questions or would like further information on Beyond HR in terms of long COVID or any other HR related queries that you have, our phone numbers are there and an email address as well. But if I can just open the floor to any questions that you may have. I'll just give you a couple of moments to write them the questions, and thank you very much for your time. As I said, if you email the email address there, we will be able to send over a copy of the slides to you as well. But thank you for your time today, and I'll await any questions coming through. Okay, so we've just got a question there in terms of after how long should we be getting in touch after the employee's been off sick before we start any process. Really, it's you may obviously have a different fit note for varying times, but really kind of between 3 and 4 weeks, we would advise for you to get in touch to then start looking at what you need to do in terms of next steps and potential support. There may be some communication, but maybe a bit more of a formal meeting at that time to invite the employee to a meeting to properly discuss and see the way forward. So thank you for that question. Oh, and another one in terms of the symptoms, I'll not name the employer. They have an employee that has some symptoms that haven't been listed as possible symptoms that we talked about there. How do they deal with these issues? Again, seek professional advice, see what the professionals have to say in terms of reasonable adjustments, and find out the level of symptoms that the person is experiencing. But I guess there'll be other symptoms that come to light later as well that may not have featured on the beginning of the slides. I don't have any more questions there. That's great. If you prefer to pop those questions in an email, by all means do so, and we hope to hear from you soon. And thanks again to Causeway for putting on today's session. Take care.